the state of disaster may be over, but we're facing a bigger disaster. That's according to the former Gauteng Premier, Mbhazima Shilowa. He says everyone agrees that the unemployment situation in the country is a ticking time bomb, but it's high time for it to be treated as urgently as the coronavirus pandemic. Mr. Shilowa joining me now for this discussion. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm not sure what to refer to you as because you're a former trade unionist, a former Gauteng Premier, and let's basically get straight into the nub of your opinion piece, Mr. Shilowa. What worries you most about South Africa right now, the state of the country?
I think that it's not only myself, but I think the majority of South Africans who have seen the statistics for unemployment, poverty and inequality are worried. And I would argue this include the various political parties, trade unions, as well as the government. And what I'm really saying is that even though there may have been criticisms in how the government managed the coronavirus pandemic, but I think there's broader acceptance that the structures they put in place, the messaging they tried to do, the agency they showed to the country that we need to work on this together. If we were to have a similar strategy, a similar approach, a similar way of ensuring that everyone is brought on board, and then we make this our number one disaster at the moment, maybe we will be able to work on it, not only because government will be doing something, but because in the same way, business had begun to have their own structures where on a weekly basis they are accounted to one another on what they are doing to stem the pandemic. Maybe we could also be able to account on a weekly basis, monthly basis, what is happening to deal with issues of poverty and unemployment.
Yeah. You know, the argument you're raising takes me back to 2010, the FIFA World Cup that was to be held in the country and held successfully, might I add. The speed of light with which stadia was built. At that time, if you remember the conversation, it was about how quickly government acted here to try and make sure that these stadia are ready. Why couldn't government act with the same speed of light to eradicate the shack dwellings and in their place put proper living structures for poor people? And many years later, nothing has improved in as far as the delivery of houses. So what hope do you have that what you are raising now could potentially galvanize the political leadership and indeed the business leadership in the country?
I think we must always live in hope. We must always accept that regardless of what some people may think, we have a government that has been elected at local, provincial and national level, that we have businesses, communities of faith, traditional leaders, youth structures, and that we must continue to nudge everybody. And I've got no doubt that if the president was tomorrow to say, having called for this social dialogue, I now want to ensure that with the same vigor, as you say, we did for the 2010, that we did for the 2010 in terms of setting up courts, including even to deal with issues of prosecutions, that same energy we were using for the coronavirus, we're going to put it into this issue of jobs. And I, as the president, will be leading this. Yeah. I will, on a regular basis, be updating the country on what we're doing to look at issues such as, a construction of dams, of roads, of social and economic infrastructure, in which we employ local people, as in local structures, in which we are able to use labor intensity. I'm sure you will find that we can be able to mobilize resources including from business,
Yeah.
to be able to move this country. It can be a 5 to 10 year program, which everybody, even political parties, must be asked to lend their hand.
Very briefly, if you can, Dr. Shilowa, I don't want to ask you the rhetorical question, because that's what it has become. Is there political will to do this from the current government, you think? My question to you simply is this. If a former president and a former Secretary General of the African National Congress, Kgalema Motlanthe, can make comments suggesting that the political party or parties that will likely take South Africa into the future have yet to emerge in South Africa, what hope is there that this ANC government carries the very hopes and aspirations that you say we must be enthused about?
Well, like I said, that is the future that Mr. Motlanthe is talking about, that he's wishing for. We have a reality. We have a government that is in place, which I've got no doubt knows that the majority of unemployed people are women and youth, many of them in rural areas, that are the majority voters for the ANC, and that therefore they can, if pushed, do right by our people.